Hey, and here we are on part 3 of the Johnson Seahorse revival on this little td-20 5-horsepower motor. And again, we're coming from the hallowed halls of the shop here at Sportsman's Marina. And what we're going to do, in the last episode we tried to get this thing started with the cordless drill just to see if it would turn over, and it wouldn't. So we decided to regroup, and here we are again. So what I did was I squirted a little fuel with a squirt bottle into the cylinders. I took out the spark plugs there, and I just took a ketchup bottle. Took one of these ketchup squirt bottles here, and filled it with some 1601. It's 1601 fuel ratio mixed to oil, and squirt it in the cylinders, and put the plugs back in. I'm going to see if this baby will crank over real quick. Let's give it a shot. The pull starter is still kind of lame because we're missing one of the springs for the recoil, the pawl. Let's find out what happens. Let's give it a crank. Kind of hard to do with one hand. Well, I'm going to try. Oop. Yeah, it's stuck. See if you can get that baby to kick over. Not today. No, I just want to do it. I'm kind of locked up. All right, I'll come back. Yeah, it's okay. I took the whole pull starter mechanism off the top. There it is right there. And what's happening is we're missing a spring here. I don't know if you can catch that right there, but these springs right here are essential, because what it does is it kind of comes out with centrifugal force and catches the pull starter bit and allows it to crank it. But one of the springs right there is missing. Well, it was there actually to begin with. What happened was it just got shredded by the pull start rope. I'll show you here. What's going on, I believe, is a string or something is getting in the way. Sorry about that. Something's getting in the way in here, and what it wound up doing was just like shredding the hell out of that one spring. So one of the issues is this cloth covered cable for the starter. Started doing this with one hand here, so you'll notice that there's a steel cable. I believe it's coated in copper. Is then in turn coated with a sheath made out of cloth, almost like a there it is, almost like a clothesline consistency, clothy, cottony thing. It's worn out from age. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut that all off of there. I'm just going to remove that sheathing. I mean, it doesn't seem to really get in the way of the ability to use the pull starter. I guess it was just sort of like an insulation so that things wouldn't get scratched. So I'm going to remove that, and then we'll get back to you. Alright, so I've moved everything over to the building where I'm working on the pontoon boat. Where I'm recovering all the panels on the birdcage with vinyl. I've got an episode on that. You might have seen it. If not, have a look. It's kind of informative. But anyway, yeah, so I moved over that building over there across the way. And here's the starter mechanism for that Seahorse. And what I've done was I've pulled out the cord, the starter cord, all the way out. And then I clamped it off over here so that it wouldn't recoil back on the spool. This is spring loaded. And of course, it's intended to just like pull itself back in once you've reached the apex of the draw, to draw it out. So I've got it clamped off there for now. And then what I'm going to do, that makes it easy for me to just like go along here with perhaps, I'm thinking, maybe an X-Acto knife and just like score it and try to cut through the cloth all the way and just remove it completely. I could see it's binding right about there when it hits the that pulley right there. It's binding, and of course this is binding on this too. This thing's all like woolly, so it's acting as a stop. It's in the way. It's inhibiting it from coming out and going back in. So I'm just going to start cutting away at it, and then I'll get back to you and show you what that looks like when it's all taken off. Alright, so what I wound up doing is getting all of that cloth sheathing stripped off of the cable, starter cable. And how I did it was actually, I tried cutting it at first. Tried cutting it off and going up the length of the sheathing. Here's a piece of it. I'm going to try to go up against the length of the sheathing and just peeling it apart. But that wasn't really working out too well. This stuff, even though it's all frayed up, actually it's kind of tough along its length. It didn't want to do it. So I took the starter pull start handle apart, and I found out what was going on was the cable was coming up the middle here, and then the cable was just like coming around one of these screws and then around the other screw, and then it was just like clamped in place. So it was no big deal to just unclamp it and then pull it through the bottom. And then it had a couple of little like kinks in it, so it wasn't allowing the sheathing to just slide out easily. So I cut like, I don't know, a 2-inch length off until the kinks were out of it. And it's only 2-inch length, and I just used a pair of dikes, and that actually went pretty easily. Normally, if you try to cut cable like this, especially if it's a dull pair of dikes, it's going to wind up fraying out, or you won't clip them all, and some will be left behind, and it'll be all jaggedy and nasty, and it'll just start fraying out. But I got lucky. It worked. This worked out really well. And if you look really close, it's a clean cut. See that? Nice and clean cut. I don't know if you can notice that or not. You can't really tell, especially there it is. It actually looks like it's got a coppery hue to it. So yeah, this thing was actually like clad or dipped in some kind of copper. It's steel covered with copper. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put this guy all together again. And that should get rid of our binding problem for the starter. Okay, let's see what happens. So, okay, it's all back together. There's the starter handle. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Yeah, nice and smooth. Look at that. Nice and smooth. No more binding. That should do it. All right, I guess the next step is going to be propping it back on top of the engine, and maybe putting the screws in, loosening them, finger tight, and then let's see if it'll crank over. Okay, let's go do that. Okay, so what I wound up doing is instead of waiting for a pull spring to come from eBay, wait for the mail and all that stuff, what I did was I took I need a manicure. What I did was take a spring out of one of those clicky pens and kind of stretched it out. Then I bent it into shape, sort of like a stock one. There's the factory one right there, and I kind of just like took a cue from that and kind of emulated it, and it works the way it's supposed to. I mean, it looks horrible, and obviously it's just all over the place because I couldn't get it to bend exactly right. I might try to fabricate one that's a little bit more efficient and works a little more properly, but I think for the time being, until eBay delivers the original ones, the right ones from the factory, I'm going to try this and see what happens. So we're going to give it a go and see what happens. Okay, hold on. Alright, we're back. So I managed to get the pull starter back on there, and I tightened up the spring a little bit. Turns out that the coil spring, the recoil spring, was installed backwards. it was flipped around, and maybe that was part of the problem. I don't know, but I took that all apart and managed to flip it around and coil it back up and hold it with 2 hands in some funky way and get it all back together and tight. So what I did was I took a fuel line. I squirted some fuel down there. Yeah, like that, zip, 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 in hopes that maybe if that carburetor's still usable the way it is without rebuilding it, you might get some action. And I'm not going to lie to you, it started. Pull started, it started. So let's see if I can reenact that. I've got the throttle control lever to someplace between start and fast. Saw it on the internet. Instead of putting it on straight, just give it a little more fuel. And I pushed down the tickler a few times, like that, the primer. And I don't know if I can do this with one hand. We're going to try this and see if I can recreate what happened just moments ago. Let's give it a shot. Woohoo! And we have success. So we've got a working Johnson seahorse. What do you think of that? Wow, so was it worth the cliffhanger? And zip zip, we're working. So I guess the next thing to do would be to clean out the carburetor, maybe. Yeah, I'm getting feelings like maybe I don't have to clean out the carburetor if it's running so well. And definitely maybe check the fuel filter inside the tank, make sure that's not obstructed, and then clean that up, clean up the bodywork, clean up the tins here, clean up the top of the motor. And of course we're going to get those pawl springs replaced. They're on eBay for somewhere around $7.50, $10, something like that. We'll get a bunch of those, and of course 3 of them. And instead of using my jury-rigged ones, we'll do it right, of course. We'll think about getting some new plugs for it. I hear that there are a hotter plug that is a good alternative, and maybe even we'll think about new wires. You know. And there's the carb. I'll take that apart, clean some of the gunk out of it. But for the time being, we have a running motor that doesn't mind idling for us, you know, out of the box, basically. I mean, this thing's been sitting for 20 years, and with little or no effort, this puppy's cranking. All right, then. This is Mike coming to you from Sportsman's Marina for Classic Boat Rescue. I'm really excited, so I'm dumbfounded. Have a great day on the water and a great day on the land. And we'll see if there's going to be an episode 4, probably, because I want to clean it up and give you a nice little reveal. Maybe even throw it on the back of a rowboat or something and just like cruise it around the marina. So stay tuned for episode 4. Until then, I'll say goodbye and take it easy. Classic Boat Rescue is sometimes brought to you by Sportsman's Marina, the place to go for all your recreational boating needs. Come down for fuel, parts, or service, or just to say hello. We have it all at Sportsman's Marina.